everyone. Good evening and welcome to another session of Lunch Lounge. And we are so lucky to actually have with us today or tonight Jason Skarratt and of course our always lovely Gladys Yellen. So, welcome Jason. And would you like to first introduce yourself to us and tell us about you?
Yeah, sure. My name's Jason Skarratt. I've been a professional photographer for about 31 years now. From leaving college up until still today, I still take photos for a living. Started off as a press photographer. I went to college to start that off and then went into press, and then I went freelance for like 6 years. And now I've got another full-time job where I do stuff for like Warner Brothers and Disney and Marvel and stuff like that. But it's always been taking photos. So yeah. So that's what I do. And on the side, I do model photography. So portfolio shoots, stuff for magazines, like models, portfolios, that kind of thing.
I want to
And
know
just
what do you do with Marvel? Because you listed Marvel.
I work for a company called Merchide. So we've got all the licenses. So when a new Marvel film or something comes out, we make products to go with that. So it's a lot of product photography, but we also make clothing as well. So like hoodies and jumpers. So you'll get a Spider-Man hoodie or something like that. And then I'll do a fashion shoot with a guy called the Spider Dad, who we always use as a model because he can do all the backflips and Spider-Man moves and stuff. So yeah, so I do all that kind of thing as like my day-to-day job sort of thing.
That's cool.
That's really interesting. So, I'm just really curious. You've listed a lot of interest in photography, a lot of different areas. But what actually initially drew you to photography? And I just wanted to share this photo, which I think is very interesting. So, bear with me. So, tell us about this.
Right. How I initially got into photography, well, sort of got into photography. I was always like, as a kid, I was always really creative. So I was always drawing, painting. I always wanted to be a comic book artist. I was obsessed with comic books. And my parents sort of encouraged that all through, well, they have through all my life, really. But we used to go on holiday to Breen in Somerset every year, camping. And the one year we went, and my dad suddenly appeared with this little camera. And he said, yeah, he's got a roll of black and white film in. I think I was 6 at the time. Yeah, so it was about 1981, 1982-ish. Yeah, and I just went round taking pictures, and I fell in love with it. I mean, my granddad was a photographer as well, not professional, more like an amateur photographer, and he used to do like landscapes and stuff. So I was constantly looking at his pictures and this, that, and the other. Yeah, so this was the first ever portrait I ever took of my dad with that dodgy old van on the campsite in Somerset. Yeah, and that's how it started, sort of thing. But then I sort of I still wanted to do art, really. I was more interested in that. So I went to college and I sort of left photography behind. And then I signed up on a media studies course at college where we did like art, photography, web design, bits of all sorts. And I loved doing the photography part of it. They used to give us like rolls and rolls of black and white film, give us the college camera, and we'd be out and about taking pictures all the time. So I just got a real good love for it. But I also, because we used to do video and film, I wanted to get into making films. I used to love watching films, like horror films and sci-fi movies. And I thought, well, that's what I want to do. I want to become like the cameraman on a big film sort of thing, or work in TV. And me being a lazy student, we was asked to find a work placement while we was on our course, and I tried like the BBC and ITV and that because I thought I'd try and get into television, and they got like 2-year waiting lists just for like work experience. So I sort of forgot about it. And I was in college the one day, and my tutor said to me, just to let you know, I'll be visiting you all on your work placements next week. And I hadn't got one. So I had to come clean and say, look, I couldn't get in anywhere. I've not got anything. And luckily at the time, my tutor was a guy called Trevor Pitt. And he said, I've got a friend who's a photographer at the Sunday Mercury newspaper.
Mm.
And he said, I could probably try and get you in there. At least like you've got a placement doing something media related. So I was like, yeah, that'll do. I'll try that. Because I still like the taking photos. Yeah, so I went there for a week, and I spent the time with a guy called Kevin Murphy, who was like the picture editor of the Sunday Mercury. And I spent the week just going around with him in his car, and I absolutely fell in love with it, like press photography. I thought this is amazing because it was like so different from what I'd seen. He was like going to different places, meeting different people, and I was like a real shy kid. I was never had any confidence. And watching him how confident you have to be a press photographer. He sort of like thought, oh, I'd love to do this, but I don't think I'll be able to do it because I'm like not confident enough. But luckily at the time, that week I was on my work placement, there was a lad they used to have who works in the dark room, like a trainee, and he was leaving. He got a job as a photographer in a paper in Scotland.
Oh.
So he was leaving, and they said to me, would you like to earn some extra money while you're at college? And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. And they said, well, we need someone who knows how to use a scanner. So scan the negatives in when the photographers come in, do a bit of color correcting, cropping, size up the pictures to go to the subs to put on pages. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. It was like, it was my foot in the door, basically. Yeah.
And these are all film that
yeah, it was still
you were
filming.
processing.
We'd not advanced to digital like cameras at that point. So this was like 1992, around 1992. So I'd started doing that, and for like about a year, I was going in week after week, learning like how they did it and watching them like come back with their films, developing them, and then scanning pictures in and stuff. And eventually they made an entire team, and there were 6 of us, and it was like the picture technician team basically. So I started doing that, working like on every edition, because we had like the Birmingham Mail, the Sunday Mercury, and the Birmingham Post, and each paper had a different style of photos. So day in, day out, I was sat in front of a computer looking at all these press photos coming in, and we had like agencies, so we had all the pictures coming from Getty, all the agency pictures coming from PA, and just looking at all these amazing photos day in, day out. And I thought one day, I really want to have a go at this. So I got myself a little film camera. It was like a basic Nikon camera. And we used to have a photo diary. Well, they probably still have got a photo diary. And all the jobs throughout the day were put inside this diary. So what I used to do is I'd like scrounge some film off like the guy who used to run the dark room, so I can have a few spare rolls of film. And I'd look through the diary and I'd find somewhere that was happening in public, like a public area. So I could just nip out and have a go at taking photos of it. So it was like protests or some sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a parade or anything that I could find, which was in public. I'd try and get out to it and have a go. And I started taking pictures and showing them to the photographers. I mean, I was in the ideal spot because I was surrounded by like some of the best press photographers in the country at the time. And they were so willing to give me like advice and help, which was amazing really, because they could have just said, oh, like go away, And so if I ever wanted to learn how to do something, I'd just say to one of them like, how would I photograph this, or how would you get this shot? And they'd just tell me and show me and stuff, and it was great. And the point for me was what happened. There was a protest in Birmingham by like an activist group called Reclaim the Streets, and they were protesting about like places like McDonald's and things and whatnot. And I saw it in the diary, and I thought I'll get a few rolls of film and I'll go out to it and just take some shots. Anyway, it was a pretty dull protest to start with. They were all by like the Birmingham Library. There wasn't a lot happening, just people. It's the usual shots of people with like loudspeakers and this, that, and the other. Anyway, out of the blue, all of a sudden, it just kicked off, and they all started trying to smash up shops, and they were running riot around Birmingham city centre. So I was just following them all. I mean, all the other guys from the paper were there too. And I was just running around, and I got to where Lewis is in Birmingham, the big department store. The police had got this guy like pinned in the doorway. So I just ran over and I started taking pictures of as he was fighting with them and this, that, and the other. And I thought, well, that's cool. I've got like, I might have a decent shot there. So there's some action happening and that. And so I rushed back to the office then and to like put my film through the developer. We used to have a monitor out the back of like in the dark room, which like you could look at your negs and they showed up on a big TV, just so you could go through them to see what you got. But I didn't realize, because I'd never used it before, I didn't realize there was also a TV in the editor's office linked to it, so he could see what was coming up on the screen. So I was going through my pictures and I got to the pictures where like this arrest was happening. And we used to have a tannoy system, and it buzzed and I answered it, and it was the editor, and he went, "Whose pictures are these?" And I was like, "They're mine." And he's like, "Who is he?" I said, "It's Jason. I work in the dark room." And he goes, "Can you like print me off a copy of that one?" He goes, "Because I want to use it on the front page tomorrow." And that was it. I was hooked then. It was like, it was my first ever front page picture of, of this riot. I mean, the rest of the photographers, like the official photographers, were a bit miffed. Because I'd got the front page and they hadn't. But
you got a darkroom guy peeping them up
yeah,
out of the front page.
Well, that's it. It was amazing to it, and he got my name on it and everything, like byline and stuff. And
Wow.
I've still got a copy of it somewhere, like buried away in a pile of papers. Yeah, and then it went on from there. Really, then I got asked to the picture editor at the time, Kevin. He asked me. There was like Sunday League football. He said we wanted to start. The paper wanted to start creating this pull-out spread. So it was like just local football teams basically. We play on a Sunday morning, and like action shots and team pictures. So they started asking me to do that. So I started going out of that. And, I mean, I couldn't drive at the time, so my dad and my father-in-law used to drive me to these matches. Excuse me, and I'd take pictures and I'd use them in this like supplement every Wednesday it came out. And then it went on from there, and then they'd say, "Oh, we haven't got anyone to go and cover this. Could you just nip out and do this? It's in Birmingham." So like the trust in me was getting better, and the more I was learning, the better my pictures were becoming. And then because it was like our company was owned by Trinity Mirror, which is like the Mirror newspaper, and they used to have an in-house photography competition, and it was all like the sports photographer of the year, feature photographer, portrait, etc., etc. But they used to have a non-professional category, so any member of staff, if they took photos, could enter it, and I won it 3 years in a row.
Oh wow!
So I entered a tennis shot I got when I went to photograph some tennis. One of the shots was a kids football team who'd won the league, and they were all celebrating. That was one shot. And on the third time I won it, the chief exec of Trinity Mirror at the time was a woman called Sly Bailey. And she said, "This name sounds familiar. Didn't he win last year?" And she said, "Isn't it about time we gave him a job as a photographer?" So that was it then. And then what happened then, like later on, a couple of months later, a trainee photographer's role came up on the weekly newspapers, which was the Tamworth Times and the Sutton Coldfield News. So I applied for that, and I passed my driving test, and I got in, and that's how I started.
So I am going to share. Some photos of some photos which I think Gladys would like to ask you some questions.
So you said started with press photography, like, obviously, how you got in. Can you tell us about these shots that you took?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Pop them up, Jan. Let's have a look. Right, okay. Police raids, like police dawn raids. These are always fun. Oh, we shot past. Yeah, this is just a shot of a police raid. The police used to invite us on certain like jobs when they were doing like a dawn raid. It could be like a drug bust, or they're after a certain suspect. And the thing with these was you never know what to expect or what was going to happen. They were always real like, bizarre. I mean, I've had some real strange ones of these type of things. Yeah, but what I used to do, I used to get to the police station about 4 a.m. And then they'd give like every officer involved with the raid a briefing. So it'd be like, here's a picture of the front door. This is what the house looks like. This is the person we're after. There might be dogs in the property, so we're sending a dog team. There might be guns in the property, so we're sending armed police, etc., etc. And then, like us as press, we'd have to sign a waiver saying, you know, if anything happens to me, it's not your fault, sort of thing. And you'd travel with the police in like the riot van usually. So you'd be in a van with about like 20 police officers, but they'd all be dressed like this with like helmets on and like body armor and this, that. And you'd be sat there in a shirt with just a camera. And you think this could go horribly wrong at any point. But yeah, but what you used to have to try and do is get out before the police got to the front door, because you needed to be in position before they got there. And there's been the odd occasion where one specific occasion, which was quite hilarious. There was me and a guy from the Express and Star as the photographers covering it. And they were doing a drug bust in Wednesbury in the West Mid, like in the Black Country. Yeah, so we saw the briefing. They showed us the front door. It's like, it's number 12 on so-and-so street. This is the suspect. We believe he's growing cannabis, and there's going to be like stockpiles of hardcore drugs and, you know, the lot, this, that, and the other. So off we all went. We all jumped in the van and we travelled out. And we used to sit by the door so we could get out first. So that pulled up outside. They pulled the door open. We all ran off to number 14 just to get in front of the door before the police got to it. And they all started smashing through number 12's door. They'd got the wrong house.
The wrong house.
And we was thinking, oh no, we've got the wrong house. It must be number 12. And then like this little old bemused Indian man came out with a turban on in his dressing gown. Like, why are you smashing my front door in? And like, they totally got it wrong. And then one of them must have realised. And we're still stood by number 14, mate. So then they come round and like started on number 14 then. But yeah, but it was just bizarre. But
bizarre. Tell us about this photo.
Right, this is I'll send you this one because it's not one of the best photos I've ever taken. It's it's not much of a photo, to be honest. But this was just a generic day job I like for the paper, and there was a block of flats in a place called Shard End in Birmingham, and all the residents were complaining about how bad it was, the conditions that it was in. There was like people using the stairwells as toilets. There was drug use in there. There was like syringes and this graffiti. They were setting fires and stuff. And these poor families were trapped because they were a council property. They were trapped inside these like flats. They got nowhere else to go. The council couldn't send them. So the local council at the time, I think it was Ian Ward. He rang us and said, like, I'm going to meet up with all the residents. Do you want to come round and take some photos? So the usual press shot is you get the councillor with some of the residents, block of flats in the background, you know, all looking miffed, arms folded, you know, the serious sort of shot. And I did some shots inside of like the rough areas and what was wrong and smashed windows and stuff. And we've stood around chatting. And one of the families, this is the little girl of one of the families, and she was just in her own little world, wandering up and down the path. So I just took a quick snapshot, thought nothing of it. And I was going to delete it. Anyway, I thought I'll send it in anyway. So like I wired it into the office. Anyway, the next morning I walked in and like the picture editor at the time was a guy called Steve Murphy. And he said, oh, just to let you know, we've used that story you did yesterday on the front page. And I was expecting it to be the picture with the councillor and all the residents. But no, they use this, the entire size of the front of the page, and with a big headline on it saying like, would you let your child live like this? And then the story went on inside. And I was like, oh, I didn't realise they'd like that picture. But it shows you the power of photography, because what happened with it, people usually think that photos that make a difference are like far-flung foreign countries, like famine shots or war zones, and people are, which they are, but sometimes it's something a lot closer to home what can have a big impact on people's lives. And this photo, it got held up in a council meeting. One of the councillors held it up and said, look, we need to sort this out. And it got policy changed at the council. They changed housing policies over just this picture, basically.
Wow.
So all the flats got done up, the families were happy, you know, and it was just one picture I was going to delete. But I'm so glad I didn't now, because it helped so many people. And it's also helped lots of people from since then, you know, because they changed all the housing policies.
Yeah, you can see why though, because the fact it's got a picture of a child, it's quite a powerful message to say, would you let your child live there?
Yeah, it's I took it because like I just saw a little kid, grotty door. It's quite a good like contrast, but yeah, and it just shows you what photos can do, you know. Yeah.
And talking about what photos can do, how about this one? Tell us about this.
Good old Robbie.
That one. I love that one, but I like Robbie Williams.
Yeah, I mean, I've working for newspapers, you cover lots of concerts, from like Guns N' Roses to Daniel O'Donnell. You know, it's madness. But it depends. They're all different. If it's a big act, you'll know you'll get good lighting, because obviously a bigger act don't want to look good on stage. It's when you're photographing stuff in like dingy little clubs and stuff that's when the challenge happens. But yeah, but this was Robbie Williams on, I think it was his Swing When You're Winning tour.
Oh, okay.
He brought an album out of like swing music, and then
yes, that was I remember that was the one where he had a duet with Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, that's it. And then he took it on tour. Yeah, so this was like, obviously this shot I'm in the pit, which is like between the crowd and the stage, which is like the best place to be. Yeah, and he just decided to like lean out over to the crowd, and luckily I was in the right place at the right time to capture it, because when you're in the pit you move up and down it all the time just to try and get different shots. But yeah, so luckily I was in the right spot for this one. But concerts vary. I mean, you're only allowed, a lot of them, you're only allowed to shoot the first 3 songs, and then they kick you out.
Oh, wow.
That's all you get. So you've got like 3 songs to do it in, which can be a challenge sometimes. I photographed a Beyonce concert once, and they gave us 60 seconds. That was it. That's
wow.
all. And for 40 of those seconds, she was in silhouette.
Oh, no.
So,
oh no.
and we wasn't allowed in the pit. We was at the mixing desk, like halfway between the crowd. So we had to have a big long lens. And me and a guy called Jason Sheldon, and we stood there with our long lenses. And she came on stage in silhouette, and we had 2 bouncers stood either side of us. We were looking at the watches. And as soon as 60 seconds went, they put their hand in front of your camera and like stopped you from taking pictures. Yeah, but yeah, it's crazy, but
Yeah.
it's always fun. Good. I miss doing concerts, actually. I haven't done one for years.
But did you get the picture you needed in that time?
Yeah, I mean, I got quite a cool arty picture actually of like a backlit with a flick in her hair, so it looked quite cool. But yeah, but it was just a case of hold your finger on the shutter for 60 seconds and just keep firing and then get what you can, sort of thing. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
So it looks like you know, doing press photography and also editorial work really does present lots of challenges. So and you mentioned that you do have to adapt to those, but were there anything that you found quite difficult to, you know, to adjust to when working for press and editorial?
Yeah, I mean, especially for press, it's like totally every day is a challenge with press photography. Expect one thing when you go on a job and it can totally flip and it'll be something totally different. So you have to adapt quick. You learn to adapt fast. But you learn that over the years. I mean, when I first started and I'd go to one job thinking, oh, I could do this picture, I could do this. And you get there and it's nothing like what you expected. And then you're like, oh, panic mode, try and do this. But that, and then like you're taking more time on a job then, because time's the biggest thing, especially as a press photographer. We'd get sometimes 17 jobs to cover in one day. And if that one of them early jobs was like an hour late or someone didn't turn up and you had to wait for them, you'd have a massive knock-on effect for the rest of the day. And then it just makes your day even longer then, because you got to spend another 2 hours after your shift finishes catching up with all the other stuff. The other challenges are as well, you're going into some situations which are quite hard for people, like the subject you're going to photograph. So you can't really train someone to be a press photographer fully. You can learn them how to use a camera and what makes good shots, but you, in a way, you have to become like a social worker or a carer, or you know, a shoulder to cry on, and you can only build that up over time. It's like one day you could be like knocking someone's door whose husband died the day before to ask, like, have you got a picture of your husband? Or someone who's been murdered, and you've got to approach that door and knock it and just hope you can like talk to them. And I've been in situations on jobs where people will just burst into tears, or you have to sort of like console them and try and get them around, because you've still got to get a photo. It's I know it sounds horrible because you're like, this person's in pain, but you learn how to deal with it. You learn how to like get people like to be like trust you. Trust's a massive thing. Because we used to do a lot of things where it'd be like we needed to call them collect photos. So if someone had died, you'd turn up at the house, knock on the door, and say, "Look, we want to do a tribute to husband, son, or daughter, or whoever's died. Is there any chance I could take some pictures of them?" And surprisingly, I was quite sort of amazed over the years how many people say like, "Yeah, come in," because I think, well, that'll be nice. They'll have a tribute and stuff. But then, yeah, but other times you get the door slammed in your face, and then you walk away. You never push that sort of thing. So they were always challenging sort of things, and stuff like people are in despair with things. I did a job once where it was a family had moved in, like this husband and wife had moved back in with the wife's mother because she had a terminal illness and everything, just to care for her. Anyway, the mother died, and then the council said, "Well, you're not listed on this building, so we're going to kick you out." So you had bailiffs went around the house and kicked them out onto the street. And I got there, and there was just a woman sat on a suitcase crying outside of her house. And you've got to go approach and say, "Look, can I take some pictures?" You know. I also got in a blazing row with a bailiff that day as well, but that's a whole other story. Yeah, but there's plenty of challenges on things like, especially if it was like a car crash, a fire, a murder. We'd always have an ongoing battle with the police. It was when they wanted you at a job, that was the best thing ever. But when you just turned up to, say, like a road traffic accident and you're trying to take pictures, they'll try and stop you. What seems to happen with the police, the younger police officers, there wasn't training them on how to deal with the press. If you turned up and it was like an old police officer, they were great. They knew like you were there to do a job. They were there to do their job, as long as you didn't get in their way. But for years and years, that training must have stopped, and we was constantly having running battles with the police officers. But I had a great tip off one of the old photographers I used to work with, and he said the best thing to do is, if you don't ever stand where, like, say if the police have taped off somewhere, that's where they want you to be. He said, don't ever stand there. He goes, all the other people will stand there, like the TV crews and whatnot. He said, go somewhere else, go explore, see if you can walk around a back alley and get a better angle or something different. He said, like 9 times out of 10, you might miss a good shot. But when you get that one shot, what no one else has got. And so I use that as that advice throughout my whole sort of career. It's like, right, if all them press photographers are stood there, I'm going to stand over there. I might get something, because they're all going to get the same stuff. So,
Yeah.
That was another challenge, like trying to outdo the, well, say outdo,
And trying to get that shot.
Try and get better. And, I mean, when it comes to like the fire service, they were great. I think they just love being photographed. So they take you into fires and stuff. It's like, yeah, I'll put this helmet on, come with us, so you can take some shots and stuff. And they'll be there posing with like a heat gun or something. You know, it was like, they were brilliant, the fire service. Yeah, but I think it still goes on today. Press photographers still have a running in battle with police officers and everything.
So how did you find your niche with portrait, art, nude, press, and model location photography? And can you do creative shots?
Yeah, well, I suppose you when you first start off, you haven't got a niche at all. You know, you look at other influences. So I used to look at like press work. Like I said, I used to see press pictures coming in, day out. So you sort of think, oh, I'd like to try and get a shot like that if I'm on that sort of job, or if I do that, I'll try that and this, that, and the other. And eventually, after like you're up to speed with that sort of thing, you start thinking, well, I'm going to try and mix it up a bit. I might try something different this time. There's a classic shot, and it's when they have the A-level results in schools. Every press photographer, when they're starting out, takes a picture of like a young girl with her GCSE results or A levels, jumping up in the air, cheering. It's like press photography 101. So eventually, throughout the years, then you say, well, I'm going to try and do something different this time. And that's when you start getting your little niche appear. For press photography, like I said, like that photographer said to me, don't stand where everyone else stands. And you do get different shots in, and that's how it works. With model stuff and like portraits and things, again, when you first start off, you're just constantly looking at pictures. I used to have books like by guys called Bob Carlos Clark, Peter Lindbergh, Helmut Newton. I was inspired by their work because it was slightly different to the run of the mill, like fashion photos and this, that, and the other. So yeah, and you sort of try and emulate and copy them just to work out how did they like that, what light did they use, what lens did they shoot that on, and eventually, after keep doing it, you'll start to see, you think, well, that looks like it was an 85mm, or you know, and that's when you can start twisting it yourself to like your own ideas, and that's when your niche appears. But I don't really like to say I've got a niche because I'm quite experimental. I'll constantly try different things. A lot of photographers will get that sort of stick in that area, and they'll never, like, it's like they're trapped in a box, and they're scared to try anything else because they think, well, that works, I'll just do that again. Whereas I'm the opposite. Let's try this. What if I put this light here, or what if I throw this over you? You know, it's just keep trying. I mean, sometimes it don't work, but then other times you look at your back of your camera and you think, well, that looks absolutely amazing. You know, it's just part of it. So yeah, so I don't like to say, I don't even think I've got a style. There's a, maybe I have slightly in my editing, maybe, or whatnot, but yeah, but I try not to stick to like doing the same thing all over again.
Yeah, I've got some photos here that I'd like to share. Let me.
Right, you've been given access.
Yes. So what I'll do is I'll add these photos. So tell us about these photos.
Well, this was quite a recent shoot. Well, I'll say about 6 months ago. This is a model called Heather. I shoot Heather a lot. I mean, she keeps a tally on how many shots we've got between us. I think she's up to about 10,000. So I have shot a lot with Heather. But the reason I shoot a lot with Heather is because she's an amazing model. She's so good at like expression and trying things. I'll give her some weird ideas and say, "Shall we try this?" And she's always up for it. Yeah. So this shot, we was chatting one day about like what we could do next, and she said, "Oh, do you reckon you could set me on fire?" And it was around the time when generative fill and AI and all that had started, like on Photoshop, and I try and avoid that as much as I can. I mean, I don't like. I'd rather do it in real life. So we worked out that you can make these things called butane bubbles. They do it in primary schools to show kids science and stuff. So you get some like washing up liquid in a bowl, put some like lighter fluid gas, make bubbles, so it bubbles up, and then you just hold it and you just set fire to it, and it goes up in flames. And Heather, being brave and trusting, we tried it. Yeah, and we got some really cool shots from it.
Yeah, this came out really cool.
Yeah,
and this
Very
one,
cool. Very cool.
this is Heather again. This is another one of our experimental shots. Yeah, we did a shoot ages ago. There's this pigment paint you can buy. It's by a company called Meron. It's like chrome. You can get chrome or like gold, and it's like powdered stuff. And we did a chrome shoot way before this, where I painted Heather from head to toe chrome colored, and we did just like studio like white background shots of it. But then we realized, we worked out, if this chrome powder stuff floats on water. So we thought, I wonder if it would work if we made a bath of milk using milk powder as like a background, and then sprinkled this powder on the top. Would it float on the surface and look like liquid metal? So we tried it, and I painted Heather gold, and then we sprinkled it all over the water, and it worked perfectly, and it just looks like liquid metal basically.
Yeah,
there's
reminds me of what movie was that where they painted the woman gold? Was it
Goldfinger with film,
Goldfinger?
yeah, James Bond.
Yeah, James Bond.
Yeah.
Apparently she died after that.
No.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Apparently they painted her that much it stopped the oxygen going into her skin.
No.
Yeah, well,
no.
whether that's like an urban myth or not, but anyway, that's why I left her face uncovered just in
just to make sure you don't get accidents.
But like I say, there's one of those models who's up for trying anything, and when you experiment, you know.
And this,
this was just a random idea I had one day. I don't know where the idea came from in my head. I just thought it would be good if we could turn the models into puppets. So we got some string and like tied it to my ceiling and like attached it to the hands and feet and stuff. And then I just shot them, like just make puppet poses. Imagine like the strings are there, and we pull a bit of string just to keep one arm up or one arm down. And then I Photoshop the rest. I cut out sections of the body on Photoshop, and then I hand drew in like the shape of their body underneath, and then Photoshop bits of string in. and then like would like to make the joints, and then the jaw, I cut the jaw out and dropped it. Yeah, it was all done like manually, basically. I didn't use any AI or anything. This was before any of like that generative fill and whatnot. Yeah, but it was just an experiment to see what I could get out of it and whether it would work or not. But that's what I say. I'm always experimenting with stuff.
How do you empower your models to make sure that they feel safe and comfortable around you when you take their shots?
It's the biggest thing with model photography is the trust aspect of it. As soon as your model feels uncomfortable or don't like it, this barrier will go up, and then you just won't get the shots you want to get. It's a real big thing. As long as you can make them feel comfortable is the main thing. So one, keep talking to them. Communication from the get-go. So if you're setting up a shoot and you're doing a nude shoot, you make sure you set the limits first. So you might want to go. So for this picture example of Zoe, I said to Zoe, I've got these new light panels. I want to try and do a nude shoot on it. And that's how it goes about. What a lot of people do, they'll book a model and say if they're doing a lingerie shoot or whatnot. And then during the shoot, they'll try and push it. So they'll say, oh, why don't we just try some topless? Or shall we try some nude? And that's when that barrier goes up, because you're pushing the levels of a model. And that's the biggest thing you should never do. Models will always be more accommodating if you set the limits to start with. So look, I want to do this. This is what we want to shoot. I want to shoot up to this level. And if they do nude stuff, then they agree. And if they say, well, I don't want to do that, then you say, okay, we'll knock it back. But from the get-go, you need that set and never try and push it anymore. During a shoot, to make them comfortable, my shoots are pretty chilled out. I have lots of breaks. So it's constantly chatting with one another, especially when it's a model you've never shot with before, because they're just coming through the door. You know, they've never met you. And I think when I was a press photographer, that helped me, because I learned that skill from photographing people on press jobs. You know, someone who didn't want to be photographed to start with, you have to convince them to be photographed. So that's talking is the best thing to do with models. So chat to them, make a cup of tea before you even start shooting. Ask them questions, you know. They might have something in common with you. You know, you might both like skydiving or something strange, you know, and it just breaks the ice. And then they don't feel pressured then. Because I've been on studio days and like studios with other photographers, and they'll get there and they'll be like, right, start now. We're doing this, we do that, stand there, do this, do this. And they automatically, like, the model gets flustered and they're like, oh. And keep showing them the photos, what you're getting, because that is a big confidence booster. And keep talking to a model, even while you're shooting, even if you just say things like, that looks great, that's cool, yeah, try that again, turn, you know, just keep the voice going, because nothing's worse or more awkward than a silent photographer.
Yeah.
Because the model will stand there and think, oh God, am I doing the right thing? Is this right? Is this what he likes? You know, and yeah, but you got to be careful what you say as well. Don't use any sort of like lewd sexual terms, like, oh, that's really sexy, or you look hot, you know, because that's just like so off-putting to a model. And don't mention like their body or like body parts. Don't say, oh, you've got lovely so-and-sos, you know, things like that, because it's just a turn off straight away, and they'll be like, I feel awkward now, I don't like this, I'm uncomfortable, and you won't get any shots. I used to have a model I used to shoot before, and she always used to say to me, why is my face always different when I shoot with you compared to everyone else I shoot with? And I think the reason is because she was relaxed. She didn't feel threatened. She wasn't like awkward. and that's how like you get your best shots. You know, you won't get them any other way. But yeah, so yeah, never touch a model, even if it's like move a hair, or I'll always ask permission first. I mean, I've got a YouTube channel, and some of my videos I'm painting models and like putting baby oil on them. But I've always said, like in the video, I've asked, they've given me permission to do this. Don't assume that you can just touch a model. Yeah, so that's a big thing as well. Because I had a studio day here once at like my place, and I was recording some behind the scenes for a model while this other guy was shooting her, and he just walked up and started touching her and moving her hair, and she just, you could see it on the video, she just went, you know, like, I feel really awkward now. So I had to tell him off. And I said, don't touch models, you ask her first. And he was like, are you joking? I was like, no. He's like, I only touched her hair. I was like, I don't care what you did, you know. Look how she is now. She's like awkward, and she feels uncomfortable around you now. So anyway, he's never been back since. So. But yeah, but
blacklisted straight on. So thank you so much for that, Jason. That's really, really insightful. Moving actually to some of the memorable and most challenging project that you've been involved in.
Yeah. Well, like I say, every day is when I was doing press. Every day was a challenge. I've done all sorts. It's like a lot of them is times when you have to get pictures of people who don't want to be photographed. So like outside court was a big one. Like just getting people coming out of court. They're called snatch photos. So you used to do court snatches or doorstep snatches. And it was usually like the lowest of the low people sort of thing, like paedophiles and sex offenders and drug dealers and whatnot. They were always a challenge because you could easily get your head kicked in. I mean, I've been punched, kicked, spat at, you know, I've been pinned down on the floor. I've had people try and take my cameras off me. They were always a big challenge. When I first started, and like the first court case I ever went to cover, one of the photographers said to me, like, he goes, just don't keep your camera around your neck on the camera strap. And I was like, why would you not do that? He goes, because if they get hold of your camera, they can swing you around and strangle you with it. So yeah, so it's things like that. The time was another one, and weather. The weather. I mean, our great British weather. You'd go think, oh, we're going to do a nice sunrise shot on a beach, it's like for a model shoot, and you'd travel for miles, like 3 hours or whatnot, and then you get there and you'd pour down with rain and there'd be clouds everywhere. But that press photography training sort of helps me with my model shoots as well, because it's like, right, I need to think of something else now, quick, because we've traveled all this way. Yeah, so there's always challenges like that. It's but that's part of the fun, you know.
Yes.
if everything went straight forward, it'd be boring.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, in your opinion, what distinguishes a compelling portrait or art nude photograph from a merely technical proficient one?
Compelling shots rather than technically proficient. I'm not a gear geek, so I always see the cameras as just a tool. I mean, it was a tool when I was a press photographer. I'm not obsessed with like sharpness. The amount of, when I first started doing model shots, the amount of photos I deleted years ago because it was slightly out of focus. It might have been a brilliant shot, but I just think, oh no, it's soft. Nobody likes soft pictures. So I delete them. And I wish I hadn't have now, because later on you come to realise it's still a great picture. Some of the best photographers in the world have like took shots and they're slightly out of focus, or the exposure might be off. But you look at the picture and you're like, wow, you know. So I'm don't concern myself too much about the proficiency. I am, as long as it gives me a feeling. If I get a picture and it's got a feeling to me, like the models give me that look, which shows, emotion, and it's I don't know, it's hard to describe. Um, I just like shots where you get that emotional feel when you look at them. I mean, it's easy to like make sure everything's sharp, make sure everything, but like I said before, I enjoy experimenting.
That energy, it's the energy of the photo.
Yeah, and it's like some models are great at it, they can just do it straight away, but others you have to sort of like pull it out of them. And that's where that trust thing comes in again. You might ask them to do a pose or an expression, and they think, "Oh no, I'm going to look like an idiot." But you think, like, just try it, and then when you show them the photos, they're like, "Oh God, I didn't realize." It's like this model Soph. I mean, I've shot Soph loads of times, and Soph was never keen on portraits, like close-up face shots, even though she's got an amazing face. But in her head, she was always like, "I want a model. I want to see like full body shots and stuff." And going back to being inspired by Peter Lindbergh and that, this shot was Peter Lindbergh did a series of shots of the actress Sigourney Weaver, and he did a portrait of her holding up like a strip of like celluloid like movie film with the light, with the shadow of it shining on her face. And so it's just one of them. I want to have a go at it and let's try it. I haven't got the access to celluloid movie film, so this is just 35mm camera. But he was just like, right, how did he light it? It's quite harsh light. So what can I use for a harsh light? So years ago, I bought a little vintage 8mm movie projector, which has got a really small lens on it.
That's
And
interesting.
if you just turn it on with just the bulb, it gives you a real harsh light, and it gives you great shadows because the aperture on like the lights coming out of is small, so you get better shadows. So I set that up, started that running with the bulb on, and then we just held some tape up, like, and then taped some like film, and then just got Soph to move her head around and got some shots. So yeah, so it was my ode to Peter Limber, Helmut Newton. Sorry, yeah, it was just try one of his shots. Yeah, and it come out quite cool. I mean, Soph loved it, even though she didn't like portraits, But there you go. But it's just their eye contact and stuff. It's just like a face. It's great.
Yeah, it works really well. And how about this next one?
I love that. I absolutely love
This is another Helmut Newton one I wanted to try. Using that same projector again. Yeah, a lot of Helmut Newton pictures, he uses quite harsh, just bare bulb light. And the thing I like about Helmut Newton, in all his pictures, yes, he did nudity. I mean, people in Vogue kicked off about him, saying Vogue's becoming a porn mag because of his pictures, because he had like bare breasts in it and things. But in all of his pictures, if you look through his back catalogue, it's always the woman who's like the empowered one in his shot.
Yeah.
It's like he wanted to make the woman like the Amazonian goddess. She's got all the power. And I just love that, like that side of it, because usually a lot of model shots, it's like the male dominating the woman in shots, and especially in fashion photos and things, where he just
wasn't he the first person that did that? That he empowered the woman to be the strong warrior.
Yeah, he did quite a lot. I mean, before that, it was just pretty pictures of women in nice dresses, and he just turned it on its head. And luckily, at the time, the editors who doing Vogue at the time said, "Oh, actually, these are quite cool. Let's do it." But Peter Lindbergh as well, another photographer of mine, who I absolutely adore. He did it again. During like the early 90s and that. He flipped it on its head. A lot of the model shots and stuff like that was like real proper, well done, crisp makeup. You know, all pretty looking and this and the other. But he wanted to take it raw, like back to the raw person. So he sort of gave models who were just clothes horses, he gave them a personalities. And that's how they became like supermodels. I mean, Peter Lindbergh sort of invented the supermodel. Um, um, People like Kate Moss, Naomi Campbell, they were sort of like, he was the cusp of that. But originally, he'd been shooting fashion for years, and he got asked by Vogue to come and do a shoot for him. And he went in for an interview. And he said, I'll only work for you if you let me shoot what I want to shoot. And they were like, no, we want you to do this. And he said, no, let me do what I want to do and see if you like it. So he went off and he got a load of models together, like Kate Moss, it's Christy Turlington and Cindy Crawford. And he just took them to a beach, gave them white shirts and white knickers, and just got them messing about, like laughing and joking, and shot them like that. And he took these pictures back to Vogue, and they absolutely hated them. And they said, oh, well, we ain't going to use these. They're no good. So they got like put in a drawer. Anyway, years later, when the editor changed, he was looking through the drawers of stuff they hadn't used. And he came across these pictures of Peter Lindbergh, and he said, why haven't we ever used these? And it was just that what he saw in those pictures, what the other editor didn't. And that's it then. They used them like front cover, all inside. And he became like a massive famous photographer overnight over it. And he had the balls to stick to his guns, especially when you get offered by Vogue to shoot for him. You know, he's like, I want to shoot what I want to shoot. But yeah, so that's what I'm inspired by that. I quite like doing shots like that one of Heather on the toilet. It's quite raw and it's not pretty in any way. It's just something different and cool. So yeah, so I like that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting, because when we're talking about models, we're talking about, you know, those big personalities in photography and also in the modeling world, and magazines like Vogue and Cosmopolitan and other things, other publications that has quite reach in terms of its readership.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, what do you think is the role of photography plays in shaping societal perceptions of beauty, identity, and human connection? Given that, you know, most of those personalities are the ones that gets idolized by women, young people, both male and female. There are male influencers as well, or personalities that actually have quite an impact.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, a lot of photography nowadays is fake, isn't it? It's over photoshopped, especially especially influencing like young girls. They go through Instagram and they'll see pictures of this perfect like actress or model, you know, no bumps and lumps, and they're overly photoshopped, and I absolutely detest it. I mean, some photographers are into that type of style, you know, they like that plastic looking woman effect. But like I said, going back to like Peter Lindbergh and Helmut Newton, it was just raw, you know, they just shot them as they looked, regardless of all that. So yeah, so it has a real negative effect nowadays, especially like TikTok as well and things. It's pushing girls down like cosmetic surgery things and having lips injected, and you know, I see umpteen models come and go, and they're all like having different, every time they turn up something's new, like I've had this lifted, I've had this pulled back, you know, and you look at some of them and you think, but you were naturally beautiful to start with, you know. It's like a lot of it's to do with body confidence, I should imagine, as well. That plays a big part, especially with models. You know, they don't like how they look, some of them, you know, but then you always think, well, if that's how you feel, should you be modeling? You know, but,
Mm.
but like you say, it's just like how Instagram and things and magazines, they think, oh, that's the perfect woman. You know, that's what I should look like. But then if you look back at like art history, it was all like bigger women, curvy women, you know, and that was the thing of the day. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a few photographers who like will go out of the norm, and they will shoot like plus size models and stuff. I mean, I do. I mean, I'll shoot anyone. I don't discriminate of what size you are, what color you are, you know, because that's how you meet people, and that's the interesting part of it. You know, like, you might meet someone amazing, and just because how they look, why should it matter? I mean, I shoot a lot of like alternative models because one, they're all slightly crazy.
Yeah.
And they're willing to do stuff. But I just find it more interesting, like girls with tattoos, you know. As far as males go, male models are always a challenge because they'll worry about like, oh, my eyebrow wasn't right in that shot. You know, it's like they're quite vain male models. But yeah, but I shoot a lot of male models for work because a lot of our clothes we make at work are like geared towards males, like geek into comic books and science fiction and stuff. Yeah, but it's a bad thing, especially like Instagram and that. That's why I like to try and keep things natural, apart from like the creative stuff.
You said
I think the standard of beauty, because of all the influences, is pushing things to the extreme sometimes, and also it reinforces, like what you mentioned, people's insecurity about their body shape, about how they look, etc. And I think I do believe it, that we are actually doing a disservice to to women, men, and everyone, particularly impressionable teenagers, young girls that see this and tries to emulate, because of course their views and perception is not, is not as developed as mature people. Although, come to think of it, there are mature people as well who get swayed by all these
We seem
new
to be in a
standards.
world now where people are like chasing likes and love on social media. It's like things with like YouTube and stuff. I watched a video recently of a guy I've watched for years on YouTube, a photographer, and he did a video yesterday saying, I'm thinking of giving up. I'm not getting the views I used to get anymore. And you're like, but that's not the reason you started doing it, you know.
Yeah.
Strange. Just as far as like editing things, like photoshopping shots of models, I try and keep it as raw as possible. I'll never change anyone's body shape. I'll never like adjust the color tone of the skin or whatnot. I've had models in the past say, can you smooth my skin out even more? And I'm like, no, because that's not you. You know, why should you're working as a model. If you pictures look one way and then you turn up on a shoot and the photographer will be like, you look nothing like your pictures, you know. I've had it in the past. I've looked at a model's portfolio and think, oh yeah, she looks quite cool. And they turn up and it's a totally different person at the door. And you're like, because they're obsessed with photoshopping and stuff, because I think that's what they need to look like. But I won't do it, and I refuse to do it. And if they don't like it, then tough. If they want to get that sort of shot, go and work with the photographer that does that, you know.
That's true. That's true.
But I won't be doing it, so I'm sorry. I mean, I've the odd occasion, like I've had a model say, I've got stretch marks. Can you get rid of them for me? You know, which is fair enough. I don't mind doing that. But but I'll never alter how someone looks. I mean, I've seen pictures of people who I know, who I shoot, and they've worked with the photographer, and he's totally changed the faces and stuff. And you're like,
no, seriously.
why? But you think then to the photographer, if you wanted a model to look like that, why didn't you book a model that looked like that?
That look like that.
Rather than booking someone else who might have been cheaper and then spend hours in Photoshop altering them to look like what you wanted. It's just bizarre. I just think
that's
total waste
true.
of time. But it's a dangerous slope, you know, especially for the younger generation.
Yeah, I agree.
Keep it raw as natural.
And how do you stay inspired and continue to evolve creatively in your work?
I'll get my inspirations from everywhere. It might be a film I've just watched, a TV show, some music I've listened to, like a new album, and you think, oh, that's a cool idea. Or we get like something I've read, looking at old paintings and going around an art gallery, and you think, oh, that'd be cool. I've done shots before when I tried to emulate Rubens' paintings, and we did a crucifixion with the model. Because I love Rubens' paintings, how he like the light on a Rubens painting. I thought I want to try and emulate that in a photograph. So yeah, it comes from anywhere. It could be something someone said to me, like, you know, say, oh, that would work. What should we try something like that? And then your brain starts going, doesn't it? I've got a current project I'm going to start in the pipeline, and it's based around a David Bowie album.
Oh wow!
One of my favorite, because I'm David Bowie obsessed. I mean, you can see a little picture of him there peeping. But one of my favorite albums by Bowie is The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. So what I want to do, because it's one of those albums where it conjures up images in your head when you listen to the tracks. And I think it'd be great if I went through every track and did one picture for each track. So there's a song called 5 Years, and it's about the world's going to end in 5 years. And so you just got me in my brain going. So yeah, it's going to be a massive project to take up. And I'm going to need lots of props and lots of models and this and the other, but hopefully we'll come together. It might take a year to do, but yeah, but it's stuff like that. That's where I get my inspiration from.
I'm sure it will. So that's really been, you know, very, very interesting talk so far. So of course, this video being in YouTube, there will be other people, young people probably, and other not so young people who you know, after watching this gets inspired to try something on either of the, whether it's press or model or location photography. Do you have any you know, inspiration or words that you can actually, or tips that you can share to them on how to break into the industry, particularly in the fields of portrait, art, nude, press, and model location photography?
Yeah, sure. I remember when I first started, one of the photographers said to me, the best way to make money in photography is to sell your cameras. And believe me, some days I've thought that. I was like, perhaps it is time to pack up. But yeah, no, there's various ways you can. I mean, press is really hard to get into now. One, because there's not that many press photographers around anymore. I was made redundant from like the paper. Loads of us. So, and then they get rehired as freelancers. I mean, the paper I started at, we had 11 press photographers when I started. They've now got one staff press photographer covering 3 newspapers. Yeah, but the thing is, everyone's got a phone in the pocket. And newspapers, they just want to fill holes in pages. So a member of the public could see, oh, there's a fire. I'll take a picture of that. And they'll use it. So it's a real hard thing to get into. And it's not just photography anymore as a press photographer. You gotta be able to do video. It started just like the tail end of before I left the papers. It was like, do a video clip while you're there, just film a bit on your phone, because they want it all for websites and stuff. If you want to try and get into it, the best thing to do is go online, look for local things that are happening near you. Bit like I did with the photo diary when I was in the newspaper. You know, there might be a carnival, an event, there might be a protest, and get out there and shoot it and just keep shooting it. And then eventually try sending some of your pictures to like your local newspaper. Or took these, you're interested in using them. And then eventually, the more you do, eventually you got to keep trying. If you email them twice and you get no reply, email them a third time and just keep going. And then eventually someone will say, oh, actually, yeah, we've got a hole on page 12. We could use some of your pictures. You might not get paid for it to start with. Yeah, but it's the only way you'll learn press photography is get out there and shoot it. You can watch YouTube videos and read books till you're blue in the face. But once you're in that situation where you're faced with someone who maybe don't want to be photographed, or you're in like a dangerous situation, that's when you learn how to be a press photographer. Because a lot of press photography is boring. So believe it or not, people all think it's all glamour and drinking champagne with the Lord Mayor, but it's not. You'll go to Czech presentations and schools but every now and again you'll get like a big story to cover. As far as model shoots go, getting into that, it's pretty easier. There's lots of websites. Like there's a website called Purple Port. Model Folio's another one. But the thing is with model photography, you need to be quite proficient with your camera to start with.
Yeah.
Because if you book a model, say you go online, so look on Purple Port or Instagram, see a model, message them and say, I want to do a shoot in a park, fashion shoot in a park and stuff. If you don't know how to use your camera properly, you're just going to be a bumbling idiot to start with. And that'll put the model off. And they'll think, oh, he don't even know what he's doing. He just wants to take pictures of me as like younger, you know. So you have to be quite up to speed with your camera gear. But then sign up, like photograph your friends and families, do portrait shots of them and stuff, just to get you going, because they ain't got any expectations they ain't going to use them in a portfolio like a model would. And then once you've built up some cool shots, then like set up an account on somewhere like Purple Port, and then there's thousands of models on there. You know, and you can look through other photographers' photos and get inspiration, and then you can start approaching models, drop them a message, say, look, I want to try this. I'm pretty new. I'd like to do a fashion shot or some portraits, you know. And if you go for like newer models as well, they're looking for pictures. So they're looking for photographers to build up their portfolios. So you can do collab shoots, which don't cost you a thing. The other good thing to start you off is like workshops. Go to like loads of studios hold workshops, like model day workshops. And they'll teach you lighting and, you know, how to deal with models. But with that, you have to be very careful. I've heard of workshops before. I mean, I used to run workshops at my mate's studio in Loughborough. And my whole thing was to teach people how to do things. Whereas I've heard horror stories about people have paid so many hundreds of pounds to go on this workshop with a so-called professional photographer. And they've said, oh, just put your camera on aperture priority and photograph her, you know. And it's things like that. And you're not learning. You don't learn that way. And also, I've had ones where the photographer who's running the workshop will look at the pictures after and they go, oh, that's brilliant, you know, like really big up them, thinking they might come back if I make them happy, you know, and spend even more money. Whereas with me, I was like quite harsh. I'd say, well, you didn't move that light, you know, that angle looks horrible. You've given her a massive chin, you know, but that's how you learn then, you know.
Yes, that's true.
I judged, I used to judge a photography thing for photography students at a college. And every year I'd go in and, well, first couple of years, just stopped asking me back after, I think, because I was a bit too hard.
Because you're too harsh.
No, but I'd go and I'd say, well, that's not sharp. You know, that's the main subject. That should be the sharp bit in your picture, or your exposure's way off, or your horizon lines tilted, you know, just like basic things. But their tutor at the time, he wanted everyone to love him. So he never give them any criticism about their work. And I'd stand up and say criticism about their work, and he'd butt in and say, yeah, but isn't that what he was going for? And I'd be like, no, you know. And the last time I ever did it, I was leaving, and a few of the students were outside having a cigarette. And one of them come over to me and he was like, can I just say thanks a lot for being so honest with us? Because we always told how good we are. And we just think we're brilliant and we never learn anymore. And he goes, and you telling us what we're doing wrong and stuff. And that's how it should be, you know. As long as it's constructive, don't just say, oh, that's crap. You know, give up photography, take up knitting, you know, something like that. But yeah, so, but yeah, but as far as getting into it, yeah, try and build up your portfolio before you even attempt to approach a model. You've got to photograph friends, family, you know, do all sorts. And then
would actually joining, like, you know, a club or a photography club, would that be one area that, you know, could help?
Yeah, I mean, you could. The thing is, I joined a photography club years ago. I mean, they're a great club, the Yardley Photographic Society. I mean, they're over 100 years old. They're one of the oldest camera clubs in the world, you know. But what I found was it's quite restrictive. It's sort of like they're trapped in a box because they enter competitions at camera clubs and the judges come in, and I used to sit there and watch these judges and they'd all say the same thing. You got to have angles going from left to right. You've got to have detail in shadows. You've got to have detail in highlights. And it's sort of like restricting the photographers while there. They won't experiment. They won't try other things. I did a glamour shoot there. They'd never done one in like 50 years or something. And they said, can you set one up? And I did it. And loads of them complained, especially the female ones, like members. And they said, like, she was showing too much flesh and stuff. But I was like, but that's what you're asked for, you know. So, and I set up lights. I set up different lighting for them, and I did like spotlight, and they were all looking at the cameras, going, "But the shadows are black." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, it doesn't matter, you know." But like, well, I can't enter that into a competition because the judge will pull me up on it. And I was like, "Well, you know, then you'll never learn anything else, will you?" You know. So
like
I've got a bit of love and hate with camera clubs. I mean, they're great for social, you know, and meeting and talking to other photographers, you know, and meeting like-minded people. Then when it comes to the other side, the competition side, then no, it's like.
Would you say the competition have a particular style that they go for, and that way, and because they have a particular style, it's very inflexible.
Yeah, well, you're being judged by one person, and you know, one person's opinion. You know, and don't get me wrong, though. I mean, camera club judges have got a hard job to do because I've done it myself. I've been asked to judge at a camera club before, and it's not like you're judging one theme of picture. If it was all model shots, great, but you don't. You'll get a bird on a stick, a mountain range, you know, street photo, a portrait, a picture of some leaves. You know, it's like so all over the place. So they have got a hard job when it comes to that. But then at the end of the day, it's someone else's opinion again, you know. Like, I entered the competition at Yardley and I put one of my press shots in. Eventually I had to stop using, like, entering the competitions because I was a professional. They all complained that I had an advantage, which I didn't. But I put a press shot in. I can't remember what the picture was now. It was it might have been a protest or something. And the judge came in and he looked, and it came up on the screen in the digital. And he went, "Oh, this is a press shot." as we all know, press photography is the easiest form of photography anyway. So next.
No.
And I sat at the back. I sat at the back, biting my lip. I was like, and yeah, and the
Oh
guy who
my
sat,
God.
like my mate who sat next to me, was nudging me in the ribs, like, "Go on, say
Mm,
something." I was like, "No, I'll just let it go." So,
mm,
yeah, so yeah, but I stopped doing camera clubs after that. It was like,
mm.
but then that same judge a few weeks later came back in to give a talk of his photography, and it was just pictures of fungus. The whole 2 hours, pictures of mushrooms. It was like, come on, mate. You know, I'll get my head kicked in. You just lie in a wood and photograph a mushroom, like, you know.
Oh God,
So
that's
yeah,
just yeah. I think it's given we've shoot together before, and I was one of those that shows up and just take the shot. But I do agree with you that it's about experimenting, and it's about pushing your boundaries, and
yeah,
it's about also
yeah,
enjoying what you're doing, because based on what you've just said, if it's like all you need to have details in the shadow, details in the highlights, and all that stuff, it just for me, it stifles um creativity,
yeah.
and also it takes the joy out of photography, I think.
Well, see, it's not fun anymore, and you're just going through the motions.
Mm,
You know, like I said about photographers who are scared to try other things because they know something
mm,
works, so they stick to it.
mm.
Um, yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, really, but I always like to experiment, and sometimes it don't work at all, and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? But that's all part of it. I mean, I'm the most confident because I'm quite shy, but I'm the most confident person when I got a camera in my hand.
Yes, yeah,
It's one of them things. It's like my comfort blanket in a way.
yeah.
Like I know I can take a decent picture, so
Mm.
not trying to blow my own trumpet, but yeah, but that's how it works. It's like you just got to keep
Yeah,
trying. It's
so
like you
thank you
saying,
so much for that.
So how,
Yes.
so how do people contact you if they want to contact you? And also, what
um,
is your motto as well? Have you?
what's my motto?
Yeah. What is it?
Um, get out there and shoot it. That's all you can do. If you want to learn photography,
As simple as that.
the best thing to do with photography is keep shooting pictures. It's the only way
Mm,
you'll learn. Like
mm,
I say, you can watch YouTube and read books till
mm.
the cows come home. But once you get out there and learn how your camera works, and you get to the point where you could use your camera in a dark room where you can't see all the buttons, that's when
Yes.
it's getting used to your tools and stuff. So yeah, just
Yeah.
keep on shooting, basically.
Yeah.
And
So
and sorry,
yes, go on.
shoot what you want to shoot.
Yeah.
Don't
Yes.
don't just because someone's getting massive likes on Instagram for a certain photo.
Mm,
Don't think, oh, that's what I've got to do.
Yeah.
mm,
Don't just do what you want to do. That's what I do. I don't care what other people think of my pictures.
mm.
As long as I'm happy with the picture at the end of the day and the model's happy with it, I don't care what anyone else thinks. And then
Yeah.
if someone says, "Oh, that's amazing," then that's the bonus, and it's like the cherry on the cake sort of thing. Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah.
Yeah, but so thank you so much, Jason, for joining us
No, it's
tonight.
okay.
It's
It's been a
been
pleasure.
such a wonderful conversation, actually.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, just to reiterate what Gladys has asked earlier, there might be people who actually wanted, I'm sure there will be people that wanted to check out your work to further see what you do.
Yeah.
So do you have any channel, YouTube channel, or Instagram, or Facebook, or social media accounts where they could actually check you out, and
Yeah.
and um you know to
Yeah. Yeah.
share more of what you do?
Yeah. If they want to have a look at my work, I mean, I've got an Instagram account. it's actually, where is it? It's down there. There you go. At Jason Skarratt Photos. They can go on there. And I've also got a YouTube channel, which has got shoots I've done and behind the scenes stuff. And like that picture of Heather in the gold bath, there's a video on that. And yeah, so they can check that out. Jason Skarratt Photography, that is on YouTube. Yeah. So that's about it, really. I mean, I've got Purple Paw. I haven't got a website yet, bizarrely. I really need to set one up. So
that would be good. And for the models who might be watching this, is there a way they can also get involved in your future projects?
Yeah, of course. They can just drop me a message. I mean, I get daily. I get different models, like new models, some more experienced. I'd like sending me messages saying, "Oh, I love your work. I'd like to work with you." So yeah. If anybody does want to get involved and like work on some pictures and have a collab shoot, maybe, you know, I love meeting new people. So the more different people I can work with, the better, because that's all part of the fun, you know, meeting new exciting people. So they can, just drop me a message on my Instagram or YouTube, leave a comment or whatever, you know, and I'll get back in touch.
Yes, so that's it, folks. Do keep in touch, both with us. If there's any shot that or any shoot or any interview of photographer that you think we should actually invite, you know, any great photographer out there who you want us to invite and have a conversation, please do send us a message as well. And of course, for Jason, like what he said, he's open for collab and also paid work with different kinds of models and different types of photography. So do actually drop him a message as well. And he has, of course, something coming up quite big that he did mention will take about a year to complete. Yeah. So do keep in touch, and thank you so much for watching.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.